That morning, I was standing on the school veranda, matching the names of the students. The picnic bus in front was standing right in front of my eyes. The joy in the children's eyes, the smiles on their faces, and the shouts in their voices all combined like a wave of sounds. But my mind kept wandering to one side to Arif. Although he was my favorite student, he was usually quiet, reserved, and spoke little. But today there was a strange storm in his eyes. There was a stillness in his face, as if he was trying to explain himself, or someone was trying to explain something to him. Even when he got on the bus, he was not as busy with joy as the other students. He silently looked at me and sat down by the window. I couldn't understand why, but one feeling was clear: something had changed inside him today. The bus started moving. The hilly terrain, the riverbank, everything quickly smiled back. The children started singing and playing. But my mind kept wandering to Arif. It seemed as if he was caught in a dilemma. Around noon, when everyone was busy eating, taking pictures, and playing games, Arif was sitting far away. I went closer and asked, "Why are you separated?" He was surprised and said, "Nothing, ma'am, I'm fine." But tears were welling up in his eyes. He tried to hide it, but couldn't. I couldn't ignore the change in him, not as a teacher, but as a person. Towards evening, when it was time to return by bus, a sudden storm made it impossible to return. We were forced to decide to stay at a hotel in a nearby town for the students. But the number of rooms in the hotel was limited. After sharing, it turned out that there was one room less. The authorities said that a teacher would have to share a student with a teacher. All the rooms were ready, and the last room went to Arif. I paused for a moment, but the situation was such that there was no way to say no. Arif stood with his head down. I said, "Okay, since there is no other way." As soon as I entered the room, his demeanor became calmer, more reserved, as if speaking would reveal something secret. I put my bag down and stood by the window. She said softly, "Madam, I know I'm acting a little different today." The sentence didn't finish. The heavy silence in the room, the sound of the storm, the lightning in the distant sky, all of it combined to create pressure inside. I told her, "Put your bag down and freshen up." But she didn't react. Not making eye contact, looking at the floral seemed to be a reflection of an attempt to control herself. I felt uneasy inside, but not fear. Rather, I felt that she might be under some deep mental stress. I asked, "Arif, you've been feeling strange all day. Has something happened?" She slowly raised her head and looked at me. The look was not that of a student, a look of inability to hide a kind of weakness. She said, "Madame, I have something to say, but I'm afraid you'll misunderstand," I said in a calm voice. "There's no need to misunderstand. Just say what you have to say." Arif took a deep breath and stood by the window. After a few seconds of silence, he said, "Today was a difficult day for me. I tried to restrain myself all day. I tried to control my inner words so that I wouldn't make a mistake. I understood that the matter was serious. but I was late in making any assumptions. He said, I wanted to remain calm in front of you because I knew that if you found out, you might get angry and you might walk away. But I went forward and said, Arif, are you sure about what you are feeling? There was a storm-like intensity in his eyes. He said, Madam, I have tried to avoid you for a long time. I have tried not to make eye contact. Today, I could not control myself when I came to the picnic. I said, I respect your feelings, but you have to understand there are limits. He lowered his head and said, I didn't want to cross the line. I just wanted to say that being by your side makes me feel calm. I have been scared all day. There was real fear in his voice, but he was trying to control himself. The thunder, the shaking of the house, the storm all combined to reflect Arif's inner turmoil. I asked, Are you okay? He said, I am, but the feeling won't leave me. I said, What feeling? He slowly approached me, asking for permission. He said, After seeing your smile today, it felt like everything inside was falling apart. I stood still. The sound of the storm, the shaking of the window, the flickering of the light in Arif's eyes all combined to reflect his inner turmoil. He said, Don't think I'm being disrespectful. I have feelings, but I'm protecting my boundaries, I said. Good. Your sense of responsibility is admirable. He took a light breath, as if a burden had been lifted. The room lit up with a flash of lightning. Arif said, I feel lighter now that I can tell the truth, but I'm afraid, will you stay the same as before? I said, yes, I will stay the same as before. What you said is not wrong. He calmed down and sat down on the chair. He said, I don't see you like others. I look at the notes less in class, more at you. I said slowly, maybe I understand, but as a teacher, I have responsibilities. He said, that's why I'm restless. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. It's not a crime to have feelings. He said, I don't want to make a mistake with you. The sound of the storm increased. The room shook. I said, don't stress, relax. He said, I'm trying, madame, but it's hard to be in the same room. I said, don't be afraid. He said, I'm afraid of myself. We both stood still. Feelings, respect, control all combined to form a deep human connection. The silence of the night, the sound of the storm, the shaking of the windows, the light and darkness all combined to create a new understanding. Arif said, I was afraid to speak in front of you. I thought you would be upset. I smiled. There's nothing like that in your behavior. He said, tonight I feel like I showed my true self. Arif closed his eyes and breathed in slowly. The wind outside the window was shaking the room. Inside, there was silence between the two of them, as if no words dared to break it. I was watching him, but I didn't say anything. His silence was not one of restlessness, but of inner understanding, of trying to understand his own feelings. Madame, he said suddenly in a soft voice, I have realized today how powerful emotions can be, but controlling that power is the real challenge. I smiled lightly. You're right, Arif. Controlling emotions is part of education, and you're learning that today. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes tired, his face calm. I've been holding myself back all day, he said. I tried to look at you in class, but I was afraid that my feelings would show. Tonight, in the same room, I realized that that fear was entirely within me. I said slowly, Arif, having feelings is not a crime. The crime is expressing feelings incorrectly, and you didn't do that. There was a strange calm in his eyes. Madame, I believe what you said. I taught myself to keep my boundaries. But today I understand that keeping my boundaries can also bring a kind of freedom. The storm outside has stopped, and a soft light is shining in the sky. Raindrops are falling on the window pane, and in its reflection, Arif seems to have grown even more, not just a student, but a man who has taken responsibility for his emotions. He said slowly, I am not afraid, Madame. On the contrary, tonight I feel at peace with myself. I looked at him and said, this piece is the most valuable, Arif, because you are trying to understand your emotions, not hiding them. Arif smiled lightly. Yes, Madame, I understand that even if people have emotions, it is important to find the right way to express them. Tonight has taught me that, I said. Listening to you, it is clear that you are not only holding on to your feelings, but also taking responsibility for them. The dim light in the room, the rain outside the window, all combined to create a quiet yet strange tension. Aref said, you know, I've been trying to avoid you all day today, but now I feel that standing in front of you means revealing my true position. I just nodded. Madame, he said slowly, tonight I feel like I've grown up, not just as a student, but as a person. I said, yes, Aref. And this realization is the greatest lesson. Arif slowly got up from his chair and stood by the window. Madam, he said, I never thought I'd feel so safe with a teacher, but today I realize that your presence gives me strength. I looked at him and said, this is the right way to learn, or if you feel, but you don't cross the line. He stared out the window silently. The distant darkness, the gentle wind, all combined to soothe the pain inside him. Madam, he continued, I have understood today how important it is to express emotions correctly. Otherwise, pressure builds up inside, which deepens over time. I smiled and said, you are right. This understanding of yours will help you a lot in your life. Aref slowly sat down on the chair next to the bed. Placing his hands on his knees, he said, I never thought that being with a teacher, I would understand my feelings so much. Today, I understand that understanding feelings means understanding myself. I looked at him silently. It seemed that tonight was not just a night of storms, but a night of deep chapters in human feelings. In Arif's eyes, the words, the silence of the room, all combined to create a new understanding. If you want, I will also write the next part of this story, so that the whole thing is made in the form of a complete short novel of 10 to 12,000 words. It will also include Arif's mental conflict, the teacher's responsibilities, and internal dialogue, the description of the night's environment, and the consequences of the characters. Arif, sat quietly for a while, then slowly looked back at the window. The sound of the wind and the storm still drifted through the house, but this time his eyes lacked the previous restlessness, kind of steady focus. He said, "Madame, my attitude has been restless all day today, but now I understand that silence can sometimes be powerful. I'm learning that the absence of words does not mean misunderstanding." I nodded lightly. "That's right, Arif. Sometimes silence is a way to understand yourself. You're feeling it yourself today." Then he slowly walked to the edge of the bed, as if trying to steady every part of his body. "Madame," he said, "I'm scared. Tonight seems like the biggest challenge for me, because I feel like if I express my emotions, it might be wrong." I looked at him and said, "Arif, having feelings is not wrong. It's wrong when it goes beyond the limit or makes others uncomfortable. You didn't do that." A faint peace dawned in his eyes. "You know," he said, "I understand today that understanding your emotions means understanding your identity. I am not just a student. I am a human being." The silence in the room deepened. The rain outside the window had stopped, but the wind was still blowing in, as if gently touching the dialogue between the two of us. A strange, thoughtful look was in Arif's eyes. "Madam, today I understood that feelings and responsibilities can go hand in hand. I am learning that emotions cannot be suppressed, but can be used in the right way." I said slowly, "Arif, what you are learning today is a great lesson in life. Understanding feelings means understanding your own mind." Arif sat down slowly in the chair, placing his hands on his knees. "Madame, tonight I understood that people are sometimes afraid to protect their boundaries. But conquering that fear is real strength." I looked at him and said, "You are right. It is natural to have fear, but learning to control fear is your real strength." He was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "I understand today that if you can tell me your feelings, you can find peace, and it never crosses boundaries. You have taught me that respect and emotions can coexist." I said slowly, "Arif, what you are learning will make your life more beautiful, because you are trying to understand your feelings, not hide them." Arif smiled lightly and said, "Yes, Madame. Tonight, this silence, this light, all together have stopped the storm inside me. I am learning that control is not weakness, but strength." Soft light falls in the room. Raindrops are falling by the window. Arif calmed down a little and said, "Madam, I understand today that you should not suppress your emotions, but learn to express them correctly. Tonight I am really at peace with myself." I looked at him and said, "This peace is the biggest lesson, Arif. You not only know your emotions, you also control them." Arif sat quietly for a while, then said, "Madame, tonight is going to be the most important night of my life. I understand that I need to learn to understand feelings and take responsibility." I nodded lightly. "You're right. Tonight is the beginning of a new chapter for you." Arif closed his eyes and breathed slowly. I realized today that I am not just a student. I can stand as a human being, and that realization gives me strength. If you want, I can write more in-depth insights, the excitement of the night, and the consequences of AIF and the teacher's relationship in the next part, so that the whole story gradually fills up into a novel of 10 to 12,000 words. The night was getting deeper. Outside the window, only the last rays of the storm and the stream of rain were flowing in the darkness. Arif was still standing by the window, a kind of attentive look in his eyes. I sat a little further from the chair and looked at him. Arif, do you know how important tonight is for you? He nodded slowly. Yes, madam. Today I understand I am not only trying to understand my feelings, but also finding the strength within myself. I said with a gentle smile. Good. With understanding feelings comes responsibility. You are learning that today. Arif was silent for a while and said, Madam, I tried to restrain myself many times today. I felt that if I expressed myself, it might be wrong. But now I understand. Admitting is strength. I said slowly, Arif, having feelings is not a crime. It is wrong when it inconveniences others or crosses boundaries. You did not do that. A slight peace bloomed in his eyes. You know, madame, today I felt that true peace comes when you try to understand yourself, and that peace does not hurt anyone. I nodded my head slightly. You are right, Arif. Peace is found in understanding yourself. Arif slowly sat down on the edge of the bed. Madam, I am not only afraid, but now I understand that admitting your feelings means being true to yourself. Tonight is teaching me that. I looked and said, Arif, tonight is not just for you. It is a lesson for both of us. What you are learning will shape your life. Arif slowly got up from the chair and went to the window, looking at the darkness outside. Madame, I have sometimes thought that if I tell myself the truth, you might get angry. But today I understand that if you can respect telling the truth, fear decreases. I slowly said, you are right. The courage to tell the truth is the greatest strength. Arif, you are proving that today. Arif smiled lightly and said, Madam, today I understand that hiding your emotions does not mean weakness. Rather, understanding and respecting your feelings is strength. Silence fell in the room. The sound of rain and wind outside the window seemed to reflect our conversation. Arif paused for a moment and said, Madame, I learned tonight that a person becomes a true adult only when they can understand their feelings and maintain their boundaries. I said slowly, you are right. Having feelings is essential, but maintaining boundaries is the core of education. You understood that today, Arif said with a strange calmness in his eyes. Madame, tonight I feel truly calm, and by being able to tell you that, I looked at him. Arif, what you are learning is opening a new chapter for your life. You are not only learning about feelings, you are also learning to control them. Arif took a light breath. Yes, madam, tonight will be one of the lessons of my life. I have learned that understanding feelings means understanding your own strength. I said slowly, Arif, tonight you were able to be true to yourself, and that truth is your strength. Arif stood by the window and remained silent for a while. Then he said slowly, Madame, today I understand that people sometimes scare themselves, but conquering that fear is real strength. I smiled lightly and said, That's right, Arif. Tonight is a new lesson for you, a new peace, and that peace will illuminate the path of your life, if you want. I can write a full story of 10 to 12,000 words in detail in the next chapter of the story, resolving Aravez's internal conflict, developing self, and the deep human connection between him and his teacher. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the story, then stay with us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to get more such romantic stories. Thank you again, Deca Hair, in the next video.